Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second session of Day 5 of the FICCI eFrames 2020. This session is titled Gaming, a Cog in the Digital Ecosystem Wheel or a Whole Wheel in Itself. To tell us more and to introduce the panel, I would like to invite Mr. Girish Menon, Partner and Head Media and Entertainment at KPMG India. Girish, the platform is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. We've got hopefully a very interesting conversation lined up today, and I think I just want to preface this by making a couple of points. Right. So, gaming in India obviously has seen a huge surge over the last few to 4 years. But what's been interesting is when during COVID time when most forms of entertainment actually saw a bit of a decline. Gaming, along with digital, is probably the one silver lining, so to say, where there's been a continuous increase in time spent, and metrics are actually seeing a pretty big upswing. Part of and if I take that forward, right, gaming also is seeing a very a larger evolution across from the time where it's just been about companies in India looking to develop games on their own and struggling to scale up to a situation where we've got large organizations in India who are now involved in the gaming business. Some of them who come up from scratch to build a very large scale in India, and more actually we are starting to see what we can call as ecosystems develop both around gaming and around the wider digital offerings, right? And I think what I wanted to do today was explore this thought with the panelists in terms of how do they see this affecting the gaming industry in India and how does that play out, right? So without wasting any more time, let me actually bring most of the panelists on board. And just as a preamble, I think what I would request most of the panelists also to do is introduce themselves, but also give us a bit of a perspective on how COVID sort of impacted their organizations, and more importantly, what are the kind of opportunities and trends that they're seeing arising, which are potentially habit forming as it is. Right? So to start off, let me actually invite Manish Agarwal from Nazara to give his perspective, and then we sort of Manish.
Thanks, Girish. So, hi everyone. Welcome to this session, and hello to all my fellow panelists. I run Nazara, been really active in the ecosystem for over a decade, and gaming is a very, very small ecosystem, and I'm very pleased to see the progress which gaming ecosystem is making. And as Girish said, that a lot of companies have now close to over $50 million to $100 million revenue range, and some of them have even exceeded that. So the ecosystem is really now warming up, and opportunities are galore. I've spent over 12 years evangelizing that gaming will take off in India. So very well you can imagine that how much of skepticism I would have faced in last 12 years when I've gone around and said that gaming will take off. So I'm happy that it is happening now when we are at the thick of it at Nazara. For us, COVID, I think 2-3 things is one of the most important thing, which I think as individuals, COVID has really reinforced the empathy. And I think that is one thing which is very important for all of us to really feel blessed that there's so many other industries, there's so many other verticals which are really kind of have faced the brunt of it. We at gaming have been on the positive side and just remain empathetic about it. Second thing is there is never up. This too shall pass, and just don't be harsh and don't be judgmental about businesses and people running those businesses. I think that's very important from a point of view. Some of the behaviors in gaming which I'm seeing are really deeply rooted. One is gaming has brought families together. I think that has really been a very, very important part of last 110 days or 120 days, because you're playing a Ludo or you're playing something else together as family members. That has really kind of strengthened those family bonds, which in our day-to-day life, when we were absent from homes and and to the larger family, you wouldn't really kind of do that. Now you are interacting with them on playing games on a Zoom call, or you're playing games on Ludo kind of games and all other games. So I think that's one thing which is done. Second piece is games being a social community former, and that really becoming a means of interactivity with the context of gaming is going to stay here, and that habit is the crux of monetization unlocking in gaming. And I think that's something which is now well entrenched. Rather than playing a single player, to gaming becoming a community, to becoming a social interactivity with the context of games, is something which is really going to change the way we look at games happening here. So the whole thing of and Akshat will talk about more on esports, so I'm not going to touch on that. But I think that's where I say that one of the logical question which people ask is, this gaming surge in gaming is going to be permanent, or is it a very temporary phenomenon? And I think obviously as people start engaging more time and doing more things, it will come down. But will it come down to a same level as pre-COVID, or will it stay higher? My view is that both in terms of time spent, monetization, number of gamers, it will settle at a higher level than what it was.
Great. Thanks, Manish. Adarsh, a quick perspective from you.
So hey everybody, Adarsh. I am the Chief Product Experience Officer at Airtel. I also happen to run Wynk. So, just supporting Manish's view, our business, we are in the business of connectivity, if you look at Airtel. And then on top of that, we've got a digital layer. So we have an entertainment business consisting of music and video. We also have apps that helps with customer experience, payments, etc. So, my heart goes out to all the frontline staff that has made the services alive and kicking during this time frame. But that being said, if you look at the digital side of the business, we saw a very fast acceleration in a matter of 2 weeks. A business that was 40% online and 60% offline shifted to 60% online and 40% offline. And that 40% offline obviously was shrinking rapidly because there was no feet on the ground. Yeah. So we saw that movement. And then if you look at last month, we've settled at around that 50-55 mark. So that kind of validates what Manish was talking about, right? There has been an acceleration on how people pay, how people do customer service. People stopped calling the call centers. They started going digital on the apps. We saw a tremendous spike on the video side on news, then changing to educational content. So there was a lot of beautiful trends that we saw during the COVID. That is just a reflection of how the habits were changing inside families. So I would support the trend that Manish was talking about. Now, when you take a lens on gaming, COVID is also an interesting phase for us because while we were focused on the music and video business, it came to light that if you look at what businesses were thriving during the COVID times, music actually took a hit. Because if you think about the nature of music, you typically tend to listen to things when you are on the move. Yeah. Video is more of an engaged activity where you're sitting in front of a screen, right? So music actually took a hit for a little bit. And that started making us think a little bit about where is engagement moving? And of course, video was one part, but gaming was the next leg. So that led to a lot of conversations between some of the folks in this panel about how can Airtel really help the gaming ecosystem by taking a larger interest. So we're definitely thinking about gaming as a very important pillar of the future engagement strategy, and COVID probably accelerated that.
Understand. Great. Harsh, from your perspective, I know we've, I think when we spoke last, I think you mentioned in terms of a lot of the, innovations and changes and, very interesting themes that were coming out when, during the COVID period, even though sports and core sports was actually at a standstill. Just right. On, what you saw, and more importantly, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, so I think it was a very interesting journey for us in the last couple of months, right? Even though we were one of those like digital gaming businesses that's perceived as normal gaming, we are reliant completely on actual matches happening, actual sports. Yeah. And around mid-March, 99.9% of sports vanished, right? With no certainty on the future of when they're starting again. And at that point, I think there was a lot of panic in the industry and fantasy sports on where we're going to go, what we're going to do. Fortunately, we were very, very surprised that the Indian audience took up the likes of Belarus football and Nicaraguan football and Tajikistan basketball, because those matches which were not even considered to be viewed or consumed by Indian audiences went from a tier 10 match to a tier 2 or 3 match, because sports fans still want their sports, right? So now if the Indian team isn't playing, or if there's no cricket worldwide, there's no good football worldwide, whatever there was, they still wanted to consume it.
Got it.
And so I think the fantasy sports industry survived on these fumes through April and a bit of May. And then mid of May, end of May, we saw Bundesliga starting to come back. Right. Then La Liga, then EPL, now NBA. Right. There's some, FIF, the FIFS is the Federation of Indian Fantasy Sports. Our members have been sponsoring tournaments worldwide. So there's a Vinci Premier League in St. Vincent and Grenada for cricket. And so, these kind of matches have kept the industry going. And I'm happy to say that fantasy sports, we actually hosted over 500 matches in June itself.
Got it. Wow.
So I think now, going out of COVID, even as COVID continues, sports is making a big comeback.
Yeah.
And so now I believe sports consumption will be higher than ever. And so will fantasy sports. Because you can't go out, you can't go for movies, you can't meet your friends, you can't go to cafes, you can't go to pubs. Yeah. Right? So this becomes live entertainment at home every day.
Got it.
So yeah, we are very optimistic about the near future now.
Excellent. Akshat, just your perspective on the esports angle of it, right? I mean, how do you see that moving on from where we are today? So you're on mute.
Can you hear me? All should be good now. Yeah. So our point of view on esports is, look, there couldn't have been anything better than COVID for at least my sector, right? And then I really hope that COVID goes away and we can get back to going and having esports also in stadiums and in big arenas like most people are used to. But predominantly esports has a 90-10 ratio on content that is coming on a daily basis from home, right? It's remotely produced. Like this year, for example, we will have over 650 days of content being produced in one calendar year. That means on certain days, you'll have 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 matches happening at the same time, while our physical online days are limited to about 20 or 30 that is there. And that ratio has been earlier as the same as, because if you look at a 30-day tournament or a 20-day tournament, you're only having the last 2 days as the finale that we were going and doing, because as an industry, as esports, we couldn't really afford, we're one of the smallest guys on the table right now. So we couldn't really afford to be spending that kind of money to go ahead and massify it. And I think it has worked in our favor, right? We've seen a huge amount of registrations increase, over 300% in registrations, to over 200% video growth on people watching this. And as Manish said, and as what Harsh said also, the trifecta of someone like an Airtel coming and someone like a Harsh who's getting behind real sports, and Manish who comes from a publishing kind of view, allows us to go and kind of make a beachhead of taking this activity of watching sports and watching esports and playing in esports from the hidden thing in a child's bedroom where he's doing this and he's being reprimanded by his parents. And suddenly that was happening in March, and suddenly now he's sitting in March and April with his parents, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And the answer to that was, "I'm playing with my cousins." And he's like, "Who?" And he's like, "No, I'm playing with Shamu Kaka's daughter Shilpa, and I'm also playing with Hari, who happens to be my second cousin." And they're like, "Seriously? No, you're joking." And he's like, "No, see, I am." And he's like, Ramu Kaka, I'm okay, I'm fine. How's your mother? And suddenly the parent around March and April say, this is not bad, because his 2 tools of go out and play or go study went away. Now he's socially interacting with his friends. And around April and May, this activity of doing this, the parent went back and said, "Tell me what you're doing." And suddenly that answer was, all the things that the kid used to say, hey, this is going to be in the Asian Games, this is a sport, I can have a career out of it, you can make money out of it, this is legit, it's potentially going to be in the Olympics, there are teams, international teams that are coming to India, which was falling on deaf ears earlier, suddenly started falling on non-deaf and very, very optimistic ears, which is there. And this is the power of social media, right? So one time the parent actually sees a video on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, that video follows him because that's how cookies work, that's how pixels work, and reinforcement. So every time that parent now keeps on seeing more and more things, whether of this industry. So this perfect storm comes in, which I believe the last time that happened to our industry was when demonetization happened, where all our young people learned how to go ahead and be digitally transacting people. And suddenly all the young people have taught their parents that it is okay to be esports and have careers in sports and real sports, right? This is about the 200, 300 best people, which is there. So, and advertisers have flocked, sponsors have flocked, media rights has flocked. So we've done well.
Excellent. So let me wind up, our intros with, Carl Schmidt from Zynga. Carl, just a quick perspective, both globally as well as, in terms of how at Zynga you've seen this evolve over the last couple of months.
Yeah, so I'm Carl Schmidt, the Senior Director of External Development at Zynga. I'm based at the headquarters in San Francisco, and we are locked out of our building. Worldwide, we're actually all locked out of our buildings because of COVID. So for Zynga, our motto has been connecting the world through games. And we've been able, I think, to leverage what COVID has to offer, which isn't really good stuff. But for gaming, as the rest of the panelists said, it's been advantageous to us, and we've been able to re-engage players. We've been able to grow our business. We've been able to sort of cross-pollinate games with our players, and through some new acquisitions as well, which have just come online, and through the use of our worldwide studios, such as our studio in Bangalore, that gives us insight into, for instance, the Indian market. And they've been able to take some of our games and really grow them during this period, where some of these games were games that we were somewhat writing off, and now they are thriving, like better than they've ever had, best days ever. So COVID for us, we've tried to entertain the world, we've tried to bring the world together through the games, and it's been advantageous for us and I think the general public that plays these games.
Got it. Understand. So fair enough. So I think that was very useful context from everybody, and thank you for that. I think what I want to quickly move on to now is the core element of what I wanted to sort of discuss with all of you today, and that's really about how gaming is moving on from smaller individual companies doing their parts of of the element to wider ecosystems that are getting developed, and one, getting your perspective on why do you think this is happening, and and where do you think this is leading to, and what are the key advantages and challenges that you see in building these kind of ecosystems, right? And I think let's break it into two parts, and let's start this conversation by focusing on the core gaming ecosystem itself, right? I think pretty much organizations who started off at say, for example, real money games are now looking at casual games, are now looking at publishing, distribution, using tech as actually as actually revenue models itself to actually enable gamification of apps. So there's a whole lot of exploration happening with the various gaming companies, and I think that's what I wanted to start the conversation with. And Manish, maybe your perspective would be good, because I think Nazara, from what I've seen, is probably one of the early entrants in terms of trying to build that ecosystem, on the gaming side of the equation. And maybe we can get your perspective on that. You're on mute, please.
Thank you. So this is one thing I'm still learning. See, I think if you look at from a gaming ecosystem point of view, we have three blocks. We have your casual games driven by ads. You have your mid-core, hardcore games driven by your in-app purchases, stroke subscriptions, and esports in extension to that audience. And then you have the whole game of skills played for real money.
Yeah.
And that is how the ecosystem has really evolved. If you see the market, 55-60% of the market is game of skills played for real money.
Right.
And very simple is that that's very unique to us because of a relative per capita income. There is a hope that you can really use your skills to make money, right? And there's a tangible reason for people to come and play. And what's in it for the players is very obvious, very tangible, very clear. And that's why you have seen the adoption of such platforms have really grown very, very rapidly in the last 3-4 years. If you kind of go back 4-5 years, there was a smattering of Rummy being played online. And then you have really moved forward. And a lot of that effort Harsh has done single-handedly here in doing that fantasy, legitimizing it, giving that whole flip and hope to a lot of startups and ecosystem to really make it happen. He may shake his head, but yeah, 10 years of effort has gone, which he has been at it assiduously. So I think that whole piece is evolving, and it's very unique to India. It is not a business model which you would see from any parts of the world. We have not taken it from East, or we have not taken it from West. But if you were to look at the freemium part of the games, which is what really the way gaming world looks at it from West or East, we are here where you have either your PC games being played as an access point on PC or mobile, or moving forward, it'll be a thin client and everything is on cloud, and any device is just an access point, and cloud gaming is going to happen. I think the core business model there is in-app purchase, and then there is your subscription is becoming part of that. I think from that perspective, if you look at it, until unless there is a large domestic market, and until unless there is a large volume and value of domestic market, you will not have domestic entrepreneurship really happen, right? And that has been the case in India. And the second part is, if you look at somebody like Akshat must be playing Super Mario when he was 4, 5, 7, right? But a lot of the 3, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And a lot of guys in India don't even know that, right? We are at a lot of gaming is happening in the last 10 years versus in West or East, where our generation was playing games when they're 3, 4, 5. And over a period of those 30, 40 years, they have played so many games, so many game mechanics, so many meta, core, all of it, that the game design intuitively comes. India has always been a great center for art and animation. There are a lot of gaming companies in Bangalore, which are backbone of a lot of AAA games on PC and console. But when you look at quality of engineering, which is improving, but the game design is very, very integral and the crux of the whole thing, which I think companies like Zynga, EA, Glue, Ubisoft, they are creating some kind of talent pool. But with due respect, there is a lot of maintenance projects happening, not a new development which is happening. But still, it is the best training ground in India in absence of any structured ecosystem which offers you a course in gaming, game design, a diploma, degree, whatever it is. In absence of that, at least these private universities, if I may call them, they are helping. And if you see the new crop of a lot of gaming freemium companies which have emerged, whether they have scaled in India or they have scaled sitting in India outside in terms of IIP revenues, most of them have come from these private universities. Good game designers, good product managers have come and opened up their own companies. So I believe that's the talent pool of supply. That supply pool of that talent is very, very small. And to your point, that what will it take to make a global company out of it? That supply pool has to be 10x, 20x, or 30x. And I believe, being in gaming and having seen this, you need to get freedom to fail. You need to have that to be enjoying the chaos, and that's what gaming. The beauty of gaming is. And when you have that freedom to fail, you need some capital. You need some kind of really resource pool around you for you to kind of do that. We as an ecosystem lack that today. Nobody in ecosystem has really taken that support. And to expect our government, and I've been part of FICCI and part of CIA for last so many years, we always kind of land this problem at the government door, and it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen because they have larger problems to solve, and they really don't understand us as a large employment kind of thing. So this has to be done by igniting multiple, incubators where you are really having this talent which is sitting in colleges or these private universities or anywhere. They come out, they have that resource, they have the right mentorship, and then you kind of take it forward. I think that's the only way you will really build this whole ecosystem and the capability and capacity, both which you have to build hand in hand for you to happen. Otherwise, this process will happen. What are we talking about is acceleration of this process. This process has started, and you will have many more companies really coming up and becoming big. And guys like me, or there are many other companies in the ecosystem who will try to find this talent young and trying to work with them and trying to grow them. But if you want to really accelerate the whole process, like what happened in Finland or Singapore or Canada or many other successful gaming countries, you have to really create an ecosystem which gives freedom to fail.
Understand. Harsh, just coming on to you. So, when we spoke last also, I think we've spoken on this part about the ecosystem around, and in particularly in your case around fantasy sports, right? How that, a lot of ancillary businesses are coming up around fantasy sports, and they themselves are now looking to start to scale, right? At one end, and at the other end, also how fantasy sports operators themselves are looking to explore and widen their offerings, right? So, potentially one to get insulated, and two to also, enable far more scaling and user engagement, right? So just to, understand a little bit from your perspective, how do you, what are the, sort of pockets of opportunities that you're seeing evolve around the wider ecosystem, and how do you see this scaling up?
Yeah, thanks, Girish. So, I agree with Manish that we have to build this up from scratch, right? Fantasy sports is a very small part of the sports ecosystem in India. Right. And so to talk a little bit about the fantasy sports ecosystem, when we started out in 2008, right? And then 2012, we pivoted to the model you see today. Right. But 2012 to 2015, 16, we were the only ones doing this.
Got it.
Then we had like 2 or 3 people starting to do this by 2017. And in the last 3 years, those 3 operators have gone to 183 operators the last time we counted.
Got it.
So there's 183 companies in India doing fantasy sports today, right? And then comes the other parts of the ecosystem. Google Play Store doesn't allow real money gaming on the Play Store, right? But if you type Dream 11 on the Play Store, you have around 200 apps, which basically are called Dream 11 something, right? Why is that? Because we created the equity market for sports. And they created equity research. So now they became the gurus of the country, telling people, okay, Rohit Sharma will play better on this pitch, in this ground, in this weather, facing this bowler, with this opening batsman, right? And so the statistical analysis and research has become a phenomenal opportunity. And then we've gone and, we've seen some crazy, amazing things, right? Which is, we've seen tutoring centers open up in different places of India. Actually, how we go to tuition classes as kids, right?
Right.
That tuition classes which are called Dream 11 Champions.
Right.
You come every Saturday, Sunday for 4 hours, and you pay 500 rupees, and they train you on statistics and sports. And then we've seen books on Amazon being published on how to win in fantasy sports and Dream 11. So this ecosystem is very important for the entire upliftment. There are thousands of WhatsApp groups, tens of millions of YouTube videos about fantasy sports.
Yeah.
And so that's been an amazing ecosystem. And I think the way forward for the entire industry is to actually grow the sports part of it.
Yeah.
Personalize and provide features, provide sports content, data, analytics, commerce to these sports fans in a personalized way, which has never been done in India.
Got it. Understand.
So yeah, I think that's the way forward for the whole fantasy sports industry. And but this ecosystem always baffles me. It's amazing to see, like, tens of thousands of jobs created. It's amazing to see hundreds of companies mushrooming up around this one idea.
Right. But tell me one thing, Harsh. Do you see? I think while for the health of the ecosystem to have supply, right? Like Manish mentioned, is obviously very critical. But there is also the risk that as things get more and more fragmented, scale becomes a challenge, right? So how do you see that element playing out? And this is not just true in your fantasy sports. Right? I think most parts of gaming has this challenge where there are a few guys at the top and there is a huge long tail, right? All of them are just about surviving in that sense, right? So how do you scale up and build sustainable businesses?
So I think those are two different paths, right? In almost every industry you can imagine, there is a inflection point after which there's 100 people that try to be among the top 3 to 5 companies left standing.
Yeah.
Now, even if you see e-commerce, right? E-commerce or even food delivery to a point went through those boom cycles and then consolidated fully to like the top 3 players,
right?
Sometimes lesser, right? And so what's happening now is that we have those hundreds of companies, but yes, I believe over time, this industry will also consolidate to those top 3, top 5 players. But right now, it's a pretty open field to see who those top 3, top 5 are.
Got it.
But and the second part of the question is like, can RMG? I think what you're asking is, can RMG be sustainable? Can it be like a platform to grow? Real money gaming RMG for us is divided into primarily like 5 sectors, right? Fantasy sports, rummy, poker, casual gaming, and esports, right? Now, fantasy sports has been proven in the Supreme Court as a game of skill, and that judgment is passed, and now that's the law of the land.
Yeah.
So it's rummy.
Yeah.
Poker has had some hits and misses. So they've been proven yes a couple of states, they've been proven no a couple of states. Casual games is, I think, in a bit of a hole because it's very difficult, because casual games actually, you have to change the game every few months.
Yeah.
And they're casual by the name, right? And so you can't go to court every time and approve every game as a game of skill or chance, right? And the problem is, anytime you approve one game as a game of chance, it's a criminal offense. It's not a civil offense.
Yeah, understand.
And so I think casual games has this major 800-pound gorilla they have to deal with. And then come esports, which is gone to ASEAN, which is now being considered for Olympics. So I think, comparing esports and casual games is comparing chess and bingo, right?
Got it.
Esports is a hardcore game of skill. But that's like Manish said, and Akshat will know, he's built the whole industry, is built primarily on like events, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, to answer your question, real money gaming can be built up as a sustainable business model with regulatory clearance like fantasy sports, rummy, or the complete obvious choice, which is like esports.
Got it.
The others, until they have regulatory clearance, I don't believe we'll be able to build a large sustainable business.
Understand. Fair enough. Thanks, Harsh. Akshat, your perspective on this, and I think, sort of what Harsh mentioned sort of leads pretty much into what I wanted to hear from you is, right? Again, at Nordwin, you guys are pretty much at the forefront of driving esports and building scale in esports in India, right? And I think one of the things that by definition or rather by concept esports involves is actually having a more of an ecosystem play, right? Because it's not just about saying that, okay, there is a game, you have the gamer end of the equation, you have events, you have sponsors, and so there's a whole host of elements around that. So how do you see that getting built up? Because again, individually, a lot of these elements are also, pretty fragmented or pretty, pretty non-integrated, if I may use that word, in terms of with what needs to be done at a larger scale, right? So how do you see this part of all these elements coming together?
So two parts to the question, and sorry, I'm going to put on what we said, my Professor Akshat had for 5 minutes. Yeah, if I go off rails, someone stop me. It's the difference between a deterministic and a non-deterministic model. Right? What is a deterministic model? In mathematics, a deterministic model is where there is no randomness in any end state of your play. Right? So you do something and there is no randomness in play. And it's very important to understand esports does that. When we say it's a skill-based game, what does that mean? That means 100% of the time, 100% of the time, skill will beat luck.
Yeah.
Right? That means if you're bowling against Virat Kohli and you're a normal human being, you will not get him out. You can throw 1,000 balls at him. You will not get him out. He might get bored and get out, or he might just make a mistake, but you will not get him out.
Got it.
In RMG, by definition, you don't want a deterministic model, because in RMG, the business model is predicated on two people, a Ramu and a Shamu, playing against each other. And a Ramu and a Shamu need to go ahead and either be perfectly matched, or if they're imperfectly matched, Ramu, which is imperfect, is lower than Shamu and is paying 10 rupees and so is Shamu, needs to believe that if he touched his mother's feet, if he wore a red handkerchief in his neck, if he rang 4 bells, he will win. It doesn't matter whether he's bowling against Virat Kohli or not. 30% of the time, luck will beat skill. That's why he's paying 10 rupees, right? If he knew he's going to be there, otherwise he's wasting money. He'll never go ahead and do it, right? RMG's business model is a non-deterministic model. Esports model is a deterministic model. That means skill will always beat chance. And that's why esports sits in an ecosystem which is a sports club-based ecosystem across the world. It's not the IPL franchise equivalent that has happened here. It's more the English Premier League, where there is a club, there is 5 people in a Menon that got together and they started playing with each other, found synergies, broke up with their club, started a new club, built this. And that kind of ecosystem is very tumulus at the bottom. But once that tumulus thing comes up, esports really wants to go ahead and have just 2 things. Every sport in the world, it doesn't matter what sport, cares only predominantly about the broadcast element of the top 200 people.
Yeah.
So that's what people like to watch. People don't want to go ahead and watch ABC United play against XYZ United, right? Because it's not worth it. There are no heroes being built. There is nothing which is there. They want to watch a Manchester United play against Liverpool. They want to go ahead and watch a Barcelona play against Chelsea. Right? Those are the games you want. And in India also, you want to go ahead and watch the best matches. And the only way you can go ahead and do that is finding 200 of the best people in the world is never a problem. However, you want 200 from 200 million. You don't want 200 from 2,000.
Got it.
Right? And that's where we work with very actively people like Manish, where they will have games that have that base of or a Tencent or of Activision Blizzard or Supercell, who will have games that have the DAUs and MAUs and the 6 months to a year depth of players to go ahead and come and say, this game is worth people to go ahead and have the top 200 that are broadcastable properties. And that's where the massification of the game becomes the responsibility of the publisher. And then we take that game and then I can sort of sit on top. I can easily work with Harsh right now if he has a game tomorrow where he has built the top. If he can go ahead and take 200 million people and give me the top 2,000 of those best ones, I take the top 2,000 and bring it to the top 200, and then we broadcast the top 200. Works really well. Same with Manish, it doesn't matter. And same with Zynga. We can take any game that has the depth, but we want it to be a deterministic model based on a large base so that the value of competition is extremely high. And then it's sports. Then it's typical sports. Club, sponsors, media rights, right side logo, left side logo, media number of hours watched. Our federation is the publisher. There is no federations that really are required in our ecosystem. So stuff like that.
Thank you so much, Akshat, on this. Sorry, Professor Akshat. The other thing, the other angle of this ecosystem story that I wanted to actually explore, and I think that's where we'll come to you, Adarsh, is more and more what we are seeing is wider digital platforms, right? Whether it is OTT platforms, whether it is telcos, whether it is e-commerce platforms, are looking to integrate gaming as an offering, right? And one of the hypotheses seems to be that it acts as an excellent tool for engagement and retention, right? For them, at least the impression that I've got, it's more of a tool rather than a product in itself, right? But again, that seems to be clearly the trend. And I think Amazon Prime, for example, has now got gaming as part of their offering in which ways, and you've got multiple other offerings sort of coming up. You've got Paytm, for example, looking to build their own ecosystem, and there's gaming as part of that. So and including you guys. So from your perspective, just wanted to get a sense of when you look at gaming, right, how do you see this, and where does it fit into the strategy that you will look to develop?
I'm happy to kind of go into that. So, you brought up a few important points, and I think we've dabbled with most of that in the last 2 years that I've been at Airtel. So if you look at about a year and a half ago, one of the big ambitions we had was, how do you make the Airtel, my Airtel app, it's called Thanks app today. How do you make that a significant force in terms of the online presence Airtel has, right? And we had a very humble beginning. We're about 20 million MAU. And a year and a half later, that app is now touching close to 80 million uniques just on the app. Now we've got a web property that has a few tens of millions more. And one big reason why we are able to create that is because of gamification. And I'll give you one example. We started with a simple idea, going back to what Akshat said, like non-deterministic play. We created something called the Airtel Weekend. You come on the weekend, you play a little game, your recharge could be free. But just that brings tens of millions of people on the Thanks app. Every weekend, you just give it a shot. Because what's the worst that can happen? They'll get the recharge free. And it's a fun little thing that they do. It could be a roulette. It could be a little quiz that they play. We had a cricket game once on that app, which they could actually play. And based on the outcome, they could actually, again, get a gift. Right. So that construct of gamification is rich now on our app. And we are actually productizing it. So instead of now giving a recharge away, we're actually now asking partners to come and put their coupons on the app. So why just make Airtel offers be the reward? Everybody can bring their rewards into the app, and that then becomes a very interesting advertising play. So that's one part of the gamification strategy. But now when you extend into the productization of gaming, see, I strongly believe that when you think about a telco, right, and this is any telco, in India, it's a very unique situation where two of the telcos are now sitting at 300, 350 million base. That's very large. That's the size of the US, right? That's massive. So when you think about a company like that, you got the connectivity layer. Yeah. You have digital platforms for music and video. And when you think about digital platforms for music and video, we are thinking about things like real-time video streaming. That's a very natural capability that has been built in these telcos. Now imagine a construct where why wouldn't then a telco partner with the likes of Nodwin or the likes of Nazara and start thinking about helping with the platformatization of gaming. If you want to do, streaming of games, why couldn't the telco be also an assist in that process? And I would not say that was India just a very, I would say, singular country in terms of taste, culture, language, because then there are other platforms that can come and do the job. In India, there are a lot of nuances, and Akshat talked about a few of those, right? Esports in India, probably language plays a very big role. If you have an English app that allows you to do stuff, that probably is not going to work. If you think about a creator's app for gaming, in terms of how you upload, you would assume that everybody's sitting on high-end PC PC machinery to go upload. Maybe that's not true in India. People are more mobile. So is there a mobile-first platform that can be built? That angle of thinking brings the telco very close to this ecosystem. And partnering with the likes of Manish, Akshat, Harsh, what can we do to support that ecosystem more from an infrastructure platform? So that would be the productization mode for Airtel, and we are deeply invested. We are going to definitely move in that direction.
Understand. Thank you so much, Adarsh. Carl, let me come to you, for a similar context, but I just wanted to get more of a global perspective, both from how Zynga sort of looks at, this kind of a situation where, you've got global platforms also now looking to expand into gaming at one level, but also at another level, this is something which already exists to a large extent. Right? I mean, you look at Tencent, they've created an ecosystem, not just around gaming, around multiple other digital properties, but gaming is a very core integral element of that, and also has wide integration between their various digital properties in terms of, what the consumer can, choose to do between the various properties. And, also from, so just wanted to get your perspective on how do you see this trend moving forward, and how do you at Zynga sort of look at this opportunity?
Yeah. So we've been doing some work in that area in platforms such as Snap. So we've released a couple games on Snap. We've done, Facebook Messenger, Apple Messenger, having games in those platforms, to various degrees of success or not success.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a new area for us because we're mobile first to begin with. So we're always in the Apple Store, the Play Store, those places. But finding the right partners that will help us get into new markets or expand markets that have insight that we don't particularly have at the moment. So I run actually a initiative right now for culturalization into these new markets, or markets that we've traditionally had problems getting into. So in that context, it makes a lot of sense for us to partner with these other platforms and people that know the market, that know the country, that know which language it should be spoken, which the culturalization of it.
Right.
So in anticipation of an explosion of India, in the next 5 years or so, it's going to explode, and we know that. So we've added language support for Hindi, and we're exploring what's the best way to go with English, for instance. So those are areas that we're trying to make inroads in. We're trying to understand and to find those good partners to do that cross-platform engagement. That's very important to us.
Got it. So are you sort of looking at as more as distribution opportunities, or do you also see like a two-way benefit that sort of that sort of arises from these kind of partnerships?
I would hope there would be a mutual benefit. Yes. Obviously, we want to expand our audience, and that in turn expands the audience of our platform. So, yeah, I think it's a symbiotic relationship at that point, right?
Oh, understand. Manish, just wanted a slightly different perspective on this, right? Do you see, so while there's clearly partnership in that sense definitely has a lot of merit, and we've seen this happening across a lot of other digital offerings. One of the things I want to explore with you is there a risk of clash of priorities, right? Where when you look at a larger digital platform, what are they trying to achieve out of incorporating gaming in their equation versus a gaming business? What are they trying to achieve for themselves? Is there a clash of priorities that you see possibly happening?
I think I would rephrase it. I would not say it's a clash of priority. It's the conceptual clarity.
Okay.
So if you are having a large distribution or consumer scale, right? You've got to be clear that what are you trying to approach it from? Are you trying to approach it for engagement on the platform, or are you trying to look at it from increasing your ARPU or ARPDAU on a daily basis, right? Or are you really looking at an overall strategic objective of increasing time spent on your platform for certain other metrics which may be more privy to you, right? I think the recent excitement, if I may use the word, around gaming in last 3 months, everybody who has a large access to consumer base, right, and is enamored with the idea of quote unquote super app, right? Because that is where everybody thinks we have consumers, and then that consumers we could slice and dice multiple ways. I just only ask them one very simple thing when they approach me, and they may not like my, you may say, intellectual questioning to them, right? What I ask them is that, why does your consumer come to your own platform? And what is the underlying need which he or she is really kind of trying to figure out? If you are a platform where he or she is coming to just read the headline, right, and spends in how many sessions and time spent per session, and then you are trying to figure out putting some kind of a game which is more deeply immersive and difficult to pick up and play and all of it, then what are you trying to achieve? Right. So I think people want to do gaming. Why do they want to do is first thing which they need to be clear. B, their consumer current behavior, and how does what kind of behavior they want to mold and shape, and hence what kind of games do they want to really look at it, right? Like you could have play, you could have compete, you could have watch, and you could have combination of all of that, right? Now you need to figure out as a platform, just having a consumer base and thinking that now a super app I can build is a very romantic thinking. And yeah, this is a fad. You will put some 50 games on curated, non-curated of HTML5. You will have some consumer coming in discovery, and then you would say, you realize we have done a tick mark of gaming integration. Another thing which of late I'm seeing is the term gamification, which has been, in my opinion, bastardized quite a lot. Gamification in a purest form again means that there is a daily habit, and now you are reinforcing and amplifying that daily habit by making it a natural process of some kind of gratification. Gamification doesn't create a new habit. Gamification reinforces an existing habit. So it's not an elixir. It's not a something which you really try to use to form new habits. And I think that's another mistake which a lot of people are doing and saying that now we will gamify our product offering or gamify doing that. I think those are the few things which 10-15 minutes call, then I kind of really navigate and get out of it. But that's to me is happening today on the large consumer base kind of thing. Yeah.
So I think so in that sense, more than clash, it's more realizing where your mutual interests lie and ensuring that that's the fit that you are trying to explore when you look at other platforms.
See, when you come to somebody like me, right? I'm a content guy, right?
Yeah.
I may have a plethora of a variety of content which may be appealing to different type of consumer sets, right? When you're coming, you need to be clear on what you want, right? And if you don't want, we're happy to evolve it also. That's not an issue. But if the issue is that I want everything under the sun, or I'm not clear, then I think the discussion won't go far.
Understand. Fair enough.
Girish, I'll just jump in, just a quick one on that. And it's also important. We live in a world where nothing is not interconnected, right? Everything is interconnected, and there are wheels within wheels, and everything moves very differently. Gaming, I think the power of gaming is eventually even, and as Manish and Adarsh and Harsh said, by the way, all of us know each other, right? Is this for this industry to come together and have a view? Unfortunately, if we don't have a view, I believe we'll go down a path of either an investor thesis or someone else coming in and using gaming to their own tools. Because the number of times I get, and I kid you not, in the last 1 week, I have a platform that is AI and machine learning based on cryptocurrency, which has esports and will have content with live streaming, with real money gaming and social gaming in it.
I think you pretty much exhausted all the words in the dictionary there.
Except the fact that they'll also come and say that they've got five funding offers, and we are going to have the only opportunity to be first.
Right, and as you can see, all of us have gone through it, right? Immediately that sparked a nerve. But it's what you hear from that is all those words will be used by venture capital, private equity funded companies in first or angel rounds who want to go name drop us, which is gaming, to their own purposes. And we've seen this with SoftBank, where there's private equity wins changed, and they're going through another phase right now, where profitability is important and other words are now important, where people are going and saying it is no longer about the consumer-based valuation that I will have an X amount of consumers leads to a Y amount of valuation. Now it's come down to the word stickiness, and people have used the word stickiness with video, right? So you've seen platforms now launching video to just increase time on site, because that's the other metric people are trying to go. And everyone in the world is now trying to figure out what is this new metric for high value B2C companies. And those B2C companies will use esports, gaming, RMG, skill-based gaming, publishing, casual gaming, all of these words to their own benefit if we don't have a view among ourselves saying what are we and what do we stand for.
Understand. I think that is an extremely clear perspective. What I wanted to sort of wind up our conversation with, and I think while this is always posed in most gaming panels that I've been involved in, but I still feel that with all the tailwinds that we are seeing, maybe it's worth asking this question again, is that what does it take for an Indian company to build global scale? Everybody has that ambition. And I think we're seeing a far more maturity coming in the ecosystem, to now maybe potentially start thinking on those lines, and to build scale and to build global successes. And I just wanted to get a perspective from each of you, both from what do you think it will take and what's really holding things back. And maybe we can sort of, start with Harsh, on this, and just give us how do you see this playing out?
So I'll kick off with a contrarian answer, Girish.
Right.
1/5 of the world's population essentially is here in India.
Got it.
So why do we need global scale, right? Why do entrepreneurs always chase behind global scale being a key success point?
Got it.
Sometimes even number of employees, right? These are to me unnecessary vanity metrics unless required, right? If you see some of the largest tech outcomes in India, a Flipkart, an Ola, right? Jio, right? Now Airtel, right? Like some of these tech, all the tech or telecommunications, all these outcomes, they've only focused on India. The entire business is built on India.
Got it.
Yes, they might have, after a certain saturation point, tried and explored globalization in certain ways. But I believe for the most part, our focus should be to build in India for India, right? And clearly, even like policy and even government is all in those same headwinds today, right?
Understand.
So I think most entrepreneurs should just focus on solving for India. And if you can win in India, you can then, go globally anywhere you want with a much larger war chest if you want to.
Understand.
But going global too soon can actually have a contrary reaction and actually defocus you from your biggest market where we have the biggest advantage. So I would say focus in India and go global when you've completely saturated your local market.
Got it. And you're saying essentially there's a lot of headroom over here itself.
Absolutely.
Before you need to start looking at
the Indian tech ecosystem, just the number of digital consumers is going to double soon, right? And by double, I don't mean like we're Iceland or something, right? By double, I mean we're going to add like 300 million more people who are coming online. Right. So I think if you just focus and solve for them, India is so diverse with its cultures, with its languages, with its tier 1 to tier 5 audience acting in completely different ways.
Right.
Now there's so much you need to do to customize your product offering for the different segments of our society.
Right.
That if you just do that and solve for like almost 1 billion people being online in the next 5 years, if you win that, you're good. I think you're good.
No, I think it's a fair perspective, and I definitely appreciate that. I think the only reason I would want to understand is, I think unlike a lot of digital businesses, right, gaming is one which potentially doesn't need to be defined by boundaries in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that, from that perspective is what I wanted to understand that,
Girish, let me just come in here. I think I just want to correct. There is a content and there is the underlying gaming framework.
Yeah.
The content piece will always be localized.
Got it.
Right? The underlying frameworks of how do you really ensure that level design, game economy, meta, progress, all that stuff is what is the separate part of it. So I think just to build on what Harsh was saying is that, and this is Akshat's favorite thing, gangs of Wasseypur equal to PUBG for India. And he keeps on pushing me that when are you going to do that? And I said, uska bhi time aayega. Right. The thought process is, and I truly believe gaming in India would be driven by local content.
Understand.
If you look at Ludo today, it has 51 million DAU. We are talking about 51 million DAU. And that is the game which is third largest game downloaded in the world. So our population dividend is our core strength. Build content for here. Build, if you do not have the talent pool to build the right framework to convert that eyeballs into monetization, import that talent pool, learn from that. But I truly believe that's where this is where the opportunity is.
Understand. No, I think that's a very good perspective. Akshat, maybe you want to also chime in on that?
I agree with both Harsh and Manish to a certain extent, but I do believe we need. The question is not just there is an end, like there's a supply and demand, right? I honestly believe we have, as Indians, an Indian model of gaming that we are ready to export to the world. It's right. I call it the ISRO model. Which is right. Everyone has built satellites in their own way, and Elon is going to go do it. And now Sunil Bharti Mittal has just gone and acquired a couple of satellites, a couple of thousands of satellites. So there's those which is there. But the way that we can go ahead and build this model, which is cost effective, frugal, I think the gaming ecosystem, which is mobile focused with values that are Indian, are easily a soft power which we can export. And because I consider gaming and esports to be fundamentally forms of entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? If they are forms of entertainment, how Hollywood has a soft power and Bollywood built a soft power for itself, and other nations have gone and built that. I believe an Indian model of gaming, of values, of culture, with us being such a heterogeneous cultural mix with Islam, with Christianity, with Hinduism, with Buddhism, with everyone, where we are very tolerant for this. Building a model, if we can go ahead and take it to growth markets in Latin America and Africa and Middle East, is a worthwhile endeavor to doing, because it's a national interest for us to go ahead and do. Because otherwise we'll be caught between an American model, which is derivative of English, and everyone who speaks English will go ahead and look at the American model, or a Chinese model, which might be hardware based and then locked into a certain app ecosystem, or a GDPR European equivalent base where no data is going to be shared with anyone and no advertising will ever exist. I think there is a fourth model out there, which is us going and doing it and having that value. While we'll build it and train on it on Indian ecosystems, we have to make sure, as Harsh said, let's be very strong here. But just the way Airtel did it, once we have that ready, I think it's both our responsibility and our duty to take that model and then go out and say, hey, there is a fourth model that is sitting out there, which is the Indian gaming and esports model.
Understand. I think that's a great thought around that. Adarsh, again, from your perspective, right? Because I think Akshat mentioned this, right? You guys have also looked global, gone global. You've done it in India. Now you've looked at global markets. And similarly, from a great gaming perspective, do you see this as something real opportunities for gaming companies to look at in the near future, or are we aligned in thinking that there's lots to be done in India? Let's get it right here first before we start thinking.
Yeah, as a product guy, I always say, follow the consumer, and then scale is always a good thing. I never have a problem going global if it makes sense. And when you follow the consumer, the first thing that you encounter is the Indian diaspora. So there's a lot to be done there. And Airtel is an India-first company. While we are global, I mean, a lot of our product development is entirely focused on India. And looking at the sheer set of problems, if you solve it in India, I see a lot of platforms that can ship globally. I'll give you a classic example. I was just talking to Akshat the other day. This creator tool that I was talking about, where mobile gamers can upload their content. There is an American company that has made a tool that Indians use. Now imagine if we get that tool built locally here for the Indians. Why can't we ship that internationally? So I would always say solving a problem here first, that should be our preoccupation. Let's get it right. If you solve it well, I mean, we do have the distribution channels to take it global very quickly through our network of telcos, right? That's the way I see it. Versus, I agree with many who said on this panel, let's focus on the problem. There's a lot of problems in India. Let's solve that. Once you solve it well, we can scale it.
Got it. Oh, excellent. Carl, just coming to you from a slightly different perspective, right? So when you look at India as a market from abroad, right? What do you see? How do you think about the opportunity here, and what do you think? You will need to actually make to build scale from an India market perspective for somebody who's coming in from global. global product.
But for us to come into the Indian market.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so that is one of the challenges that we're exploring right now. And I'm part of that task force, as a matter of fact. So, like I said, part of what's going to help us is that we do have a big studio there, and we have a lot of insight into, you know, the culturalization of India. We are slow to get the ball rolling. I won't lie about that. What I see in general for Indian companies who want to get global, I do agree with a lot of the panel that says India first, because that's your home market. That's who you know. That's the market that you're going for. That you know you can cater to, because that is your culture. Going from there organically, I think that you can get more global just by, you know, having partnerships that are like with Zynga, for instance, or any of the other big players. You know, a lot of our partners are branching out and getting global and starting their own game studios, and they were just service studios, you know, just partners doing art or engineering, but they're getting better and better and better. And when they're doing that, they're also learning about our culture and what our games are for the rest of the world. So I think that is definitely a pathway for India to go global. Right. And again, for Zynga, we're trying to get more into India because we see that market, it's just going to explode, you know. I've been talking to my superiors in my company. I'm just like, we have to be aligned with the plan for India, because when it takes off, it's going to be a market that's going to, you know, as Harsh said, it's a fifth of the population of the world, you know, and everyone's got a mobile device in their hand. We want them playing those games. We want to connect those players to other players in the rest of the world and connect the world through games. So,
understand. No, great. I think we've sort of overshot our time, but I think this was very interesting, because I think what was interesting to me is while, you know, all of you are pretty much from different parts of the gaming ecosystem, I think there is a lot of alignment in the way I've heard these thoughts sort of come through, right? And I think you know, and I think the kind of opportunities that exist here, both for growth as well as building ecosystems, partnerships, all of that I think sounds pretty exciting to me. And you know, I think so we can look to wind up, and you know, if in case there are some questions that are there from the audience, we can pick that up, or you know, we can wind out. So just maybe give me a minute or so to ask you where the questions are coming from, and we'll sort of take it from there. Yeah. Great. So either we were absolutely clear, or nobody's watching. So I don't know. You know, I would like to believe the former though. But thank you so much. I think for all your time and all your perspectives. And you know, I think this has been pretty enlightening to me. And you know, hope to stay in touch with all of you, and stay safe and take care.